In 2023, lots of folks are leaving California, especially LA County. The population there has dropped more than anywhere else in the US, according to the latest info from the Census Bureau. More and more Californians are choosing places like Florida and Arizona to set up shop. It might surprise some folks, because before, leaving California was the trend. Big shots like Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, and huge companies were done with it. They left. Doing business in California costs a ton, so some companies are bailing. Last year, twice as many businesses left compared to 2020, and 3 times more than 2018. They headed to places like Texas and Florida for various reasons. But if you check how California is funded and the mess with their deficit, you'll see a roller coaster for the state. This mass California departure is costing the state a crazy amount of money. I gotta say, California's a gorgeous place, I really dig it. But the way things are going, it's taking a hit. It's really sad to see what's happening. The state's taken a beating, and it seems like things are only getting worse in 2024 and 2025. I want to break it down for you because this is a huge deal. What's going down in Los Angeles and San Francisco could spread to places like New York City, Chicago, Atlanta, and a bunch of other cities. Boston, Philly, you name it. It's not just a local issue, it's going to affect the whole country. We've got to keep a close eye on this because it's going to be a big problem nationwide. If you could, hit that like button. Sharing this info on YouTube will help spread the word and make more folks aware of what's really going on. We're seeing rich folks leaving California, which is risking the money the state gets from taxes. About 40% of California's tax cash comes from the top 1% earners. Now here's the thing. They've made these top earners feel unwanted, like they're the issue, like it's blame the rich. But truth is, these rich folks create a bunch of jobs, and without jobs, the economy takes a hit, you know? So, where's the money for social programs and everything gonna come from if they're not taxing the assets or businesses of the rich? The speed at which this is happening is pretty alarming. The state's lost around 75,000 people in a year, bringing the total to 38.96 million. The deficit's mainly because they've had way less money coming in, like a huge 20-25% drop in income tax cash in 2022 and 2023. So how in the world are they going to cover this massive $68 billion deficit? That's the big question. They're losing loads of cash from the rich, and it's going to shock you. Check this out. Right now, they're saying the average home price in Los Angeles is $1.3 million. That's the word from Realtor.com in November 2023. So, let's break it down a bit. With a 7% mortgage rate and a decent 6% down payment, you're looking at about $9,642 a month for a place. Even if you luck out and find a sweet deal at, say, $800,000, that's still around $59,512 a month for a condo in LA. When you see this, it's clear that a bunch of folks will start selling their places in California. More people will bolt from the state, and you'll probably see lots of folks from other countries and areas moving in because of the social programs. You know, California, especially Los Angeles, is seen as a safe place for people. It's a sanctuary city. So think about this. If you were super rich and living in California, would you stick around? Probably not, right? A ton of wealth is tied up in property for many owners. There was a 2-year ban on evictions where landlords couldn't collect rent for that whole time, you know? Lots of people were doing these things called 1031 exchanges. They'd sell their rental places and buy another similar property without paying taxes on the profit, basically moving their money around. They'd head to places like Texas or Florida where things were friendlier. There was a massive wave of this happening. But here's the kicker. Even if you're making $1.5 million in California, which sounds like a boatload, it might not cut it in that state. If you're living in California, your federal tax would be $53,000, and state taxes would hit you at $184,500. That's a hefty sum, right? So, let's break it down. You're dishing out about $15,000 a month just to stay in California. Then there's Social Security at $9,000, Medicare at $33,000, and state disability at $1,600, making the total tax bite $741,000. After all that, you're taking home $758,000. Move that same income to Florida and you'd save $300,000. That's over 20 grand a month you'd be banking there. That's a huge chunk of change, right? With that kind of cash, you could snag a $3 million home and pay 20 grand a month easy. It's no wonder why so many people are packing up and leaving. But mark my words, I think unemployment is about to shoot up in California and things are going to get messy. Just saw this news yesterday. There's a massive exodus happening. The deal with lots of LA restaurants closing down is simple. It's getting really tough, almost impossible, for them to keep running. And it's going to get even worse because they're bumping up the minimum wage to $16 an hour starting January 1st. And for fast food folks, it's going up to $20 an hour. Now, let's break it down. Imagine you own a fast food joint. You've got an employee working for $20 an hour, the lowest legal pay rate. They work a 40-hour week for 4 weeks in a month, so that's $3,200 you've got to pay them. Some might say, hey, $3,200 a month isn't enough to live on in California. But here's the thing. People should be paid based on what they bring in for the business. If the business isn't making more than $3,200 from that worker, it doesn't make sense for the business to keep them on. Here's a fast food joint buzzing with customers. They've got 5 folks working full-time, and just to cover their salaries, it costs around $16,000. But that's not all. They've got an office, need to cover unemployment, insurance, utilities, taxes, and buy the food they serve. Plus, don't forget, the owner needs a paycheck too. So all these expenses combined might add up to about $40,000. Let's be modest. Maybe it's closer to $30,000. Now, suppose the owner barely makes ends meet and sells meals for $15 each. To scrape by, they'd need to sell around 2,000 meals monthly. That's 500 meals per week, or 100 every workday. It's a whole bunch, right? And yet, some businesses see this as a good thing. Many big companies are planning to use machines more, which might make smaller businesses struggle and possibly close. This could mean the really wealthy takeover in California, with the top 1% becoming even more powerful. Some might even leave the state. The super rich aren't always the ones you see driving fancy cars. They're often more hidden. California has high taxes, and the crime rates have been going up, with a big jump in violent and property-related crimes from 2021 to 2023. They've also changed the bail system recently. A recent study showed something alarming. There was 163% more overall crime and a 200% increase in violent crime in California with the zero bail policy. This info came out about 2 months ago, around October 1st. So think about it. Why would someone earning $1 million or $2 million a year want to stick around in a place where they get taxed a lot, pay their employees more, earn less, feel less safe, have fewer protections, and generally get treated worse? It's likely they wouldn't want to stay, right? Many might choose to leave. And things seem to keep getting more intense. California just approved the toilet-to-tap plan, where they treat sewage water for reuse in homes. So, imagine paying around $9,000 a month for your place and finding out you might end up using treated waste for water. That doesn't sound appealing, does it? Even if it's treated, the idea of toilet-to-tap isn't something most would look forward to. Then there's the LAPD moving towards a new thing called DACA, where non-US citizens could get different treatment. It's a shift, and it seems like California is heading in a pretty different direction. Some of the policies being pushed don't sit well with many parents and folks in general. People just want to live freely, protect their families, follow their beliefs, or not have beliefs forced on them all the time. It's becoming tougher for parents who worry about sending their kids to school and feeling okay about it. The freedom to just live and enjoy life seems to be getting more complicated for many. A lot of folks really like California, what's happening in their schools. But not everyone feels the same way. I'm not picking sides here, but California has become quite different, leaning towards extreme views. It seems like they're driving away some of the big taxpayers, those who bring good jobs and opportunities. California seems set on pushing them out, and I believe this trend will only intensify as more people become reliant on the state. The more people need help, the more control the state gains, and that's the direction we're headed. They'll likely push away those who earn a lot, and then introduce more widespread programs. They might try to support everything and take over more aspects. What are your thoughts on all of this? Share below, let's discuss.